In here, Marina. Oh, it's alright, they know me here. Oh, but it's been a while, though. Ah, what did I tell you, though? Sergeant Major Zero, ever alert and ready for anything.
Oh, sorry, sir. Didn't know you were here, sir.
Oh, that's alright, Zero, don't worry about it. What sort of mood is he in?
Well,
Flaming thunderbolts!
Okay, right. Tiger, how the devil are you? Good, good. Say, would you like to press the big red button on the randomizer this week?
Alright.
Well, you've not done much with the old place since I was here last, have you?
I only scored 87. My lowest score ever.
Right, let's see what we have to watch this week. Oh, I don't believe it.
What's happened?
It's happened again. Once was fluky enough, but we've once again landed on the next Joe 90 episode to the one we watched last week.
There's only one explanation.
Yeah, the randomizer's broken again.
We're dealing with a Time Lord.
What, you mean like the Master?
I am Lord Tempo.
Oh, him. Right, I see. Lord Tempo, is this your fault?
I apologize, and will make amends.
What, you mean take time back to let me make another selection?
Of course.
No, see, we can't do that. I have to go with whatever comes out of the machine. No exceptions. So just do me a favour and make sure this doesn't happen again in future, okay?
I will try.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, everybody, I hope you're ready for some more Joe 90. We're heading up the jungle to the fortress. Well, what a surprise. We are back with another Joe 90, and once again, somehow, we've landed on an episode that was made immediately after the episode we watched last week. Now, I swear this is not planned. In fact, I am using now a completely different random, in which randomizer was it? Whichever randomizer where I visited Professor McLean's cottage, that was the point where I began using a new random selection thingy in the randomizer. So this is not the same selector that made the Trial Sea Child of the Sun God pairing back in pods 3 and 4 or 4 and 5, and yet it's happened again somehow. I am going to be refining this process as we go along. Hopefully this will not happen again, but it really shouldn't have happened this time. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I've waffled all over this beginning of a spy making it into a shed and then being almost machine gunned by the very creepy soldier here. He was best known as Fraser in Creator 101. I do have a friend who refers to this puppet as Monkey Bastard. I may censor that, I may not. But I think it's a fairly effective name for him.
It looks like they've nabbed Roger Fleming.
Fleming? Why, he was carrying the...
I know only too well what he was carrying.
That was something I always enjoyed in this show. It's like, oh no, they've captured so-and-so. Not so-and-so. Why, he was the most important person in... Yeah, I know who he was. It's a very much a Joe 90, not just Joe 90, a Jerry Anderson trope of characters explaining to each other things that they already know. But in this show, they usually find a way to sort of work around it by like saying, shut up, I know my job, I know who the person that I hire is. You don't have to tell me. Now, much like with Loch Ness Monster, I have a feeling that this episode was one of the first Joe 90 to be shown. I have a feeling it was like third or fourth, maybe. So again, maybe someone must have thought that this was a particularly impressive example of the show's strengths. I don't honestly remember too much about this one. I think because, like I say, Joe 90 just blends into one glorious piece of happiness for me. I can't really pick one episode over another unless there's something really special to redeem it, and I think this episode is just going to be more of the same, really. Which is not to say that it's bad, it's just, reliable, solid stuff. And tea.
Make a good cup of coffee, Professor.
Oh, coffee, sorry. This set of the lounge in the cottage, there are some interesting little knickknacks and things all around the place. And it's just slightly oversized. There are some plates on the wall that are in no way to scale with the human puppets. There's also a photo, an odd photo of a man holding a stick. There's a big fish hanging in a glass case over the fireplace. A painting of what looks like a flamenco dancer. It looks like a really nice, homey sort of lived-in cottage, like it should do. But if you look closely at some of the background details, there is one or two unusual things going on there.
Tell us where it is.
Ooh, puppets slapping other puppets. Okay, that's not something we've seen before. And in fact, the puppet that was doing the slapping has got a really nasty scar down the side of his face. This episode is probably a really good example of Joe 90 continuing the trend that was established in Captain Scarlet of a darker streak, of a more violent nature. And I think Joe 90 runs with it to occasionally some darker places than even Captain Scarlet did. So this episode is probably the strongest example of violence and darkness in this show.
Explosives, stun gun, compass, flares, transceiver.
All things you shouldn't give to a 9-year-old schoolboy.
For you at the final pickup point. Now here's your final briefing.
Yeah, do you think Joe ever... Because he's carrying all this stuff around in his school case. You see on the opening, on the closing titles, it's the same case that he takes to school with him. That means he's going into school armed? That's another disturbing thing. But do you think he's ever sort of tempted to hang on to any of this equipment? And how does he manage to not give in to the temptation to tell his school chums, I was out blowing up an enemy base the other day? It's another odd thing. I hope Joe has friends. I don't know how on earth they get him out of school to do like top secret missions all the time, but there we are. This is a lovely boathouse set, not least because the water in the river that's running alongside it looks so filthy. It looks like proper, it looks like a real muddy old river like it should do.
Well, Joe, this is as far as we go. You'll be on your own now.
Yeah, we're not qualified or anything to come with you on your top secret raid. We're only government agents. We'll let a 9-year-old boy fight our battles for us. Now, this shot of Joe guiding the hovercraft down the river, it's a shot of the puppet in the model, the full-size model. And I don't know how this would have been achieved. Would they have been moving the set past him, like like they would do in the Rolling Roads situation of having the model perfectly still and moving the background? Because that's a lot of plants and foliage to be sort of pulling out of shot. But the camera remains level with the hovercraft. It's interesting. I wish there was more sort of behind the scenes footage from the making of any of these shows, but also this one. So here it is again. And there's another lovely touch. You can see the water running down the windscreen. An interesting thing here that Joe goes to sleep with his glasses on. Oh, there's a big snake coming to get him. Because does that mean he's sleeping with, dreaming someone else's dreams? You could write a whole book on the psychology, or at least the psychological impact that all of this would have had on Joe. He must have grown up so messed up. It's, You just know that as soon as he sort of outgrew the chair for the big rat, WIN would have dropped him instantly. You'd hope that they would maybe offer him a job, but somehow I get the feeling he'd be a bit gaga by the time that happened. It looks like they had a real snake on the set there as well. It didn't interact with the puppet at all. I think it would probably look massive compared to the puppet, but it definitely looks like it's on the same set as Joe's camp here. Even in standard definition, these shots of the model hovercraft going down the river The model of Joe at the controls looks very unconvincing. That's one part of the effects on these shows that I don't think holds up, even in SD, and especially not in HD. There's no way to disguise the fact that that there's no movement in the hair and that the faces are often unfinished. But, you know, it was 50 years ago. And nobody expected anybody to be looking at this again. Ever. Much less as often as we all do. I'm trying to think of any other Super Marionation episodes that deal with a theme of torture like this. I can't think of any. The closest I can come is the Inquisition, but even then it's not the sort of full-on, you know, lights and physical abuse and mental abuse, and it's quite heavy for a kids show, which I think is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people aren't sure what to make of this show, because on the one hand you have this child protagonist, so obviously it's meant for kids, and then you get episodes like this, or scenes like the execution scene in Three's a Crowd, and it's just like, no, this doesn't belong in a kids show. Which I think is a problem that Jerry Anderson often had, of this disconnect. It looks like a kids show, but the material, the subject matter is often not. Well, Joe has now arrived at the fortress, which is quite a relief, because honestly I was starting to get a bit bored of these endless scenes of him sort of cruising up the river. But now of course he's at the fortress, I know something good is going to happen. Oh, maybe we're a few moments off that. He's got to scale the wall of the fortress first. That could take a while. Ooh. Okay, he just fired what I guess was a gas grenade into the control room where the lieutenant was sitting. He clutched his eye as he went down. Was that another facial injury this poor guy has received? He's unconscious now, so we can't ask him, but still, never mind, he's the baddie. He doesn't even have a name, so, you know, we can only care so much about him. Oh, well, there's a shot there of the lieutenant unconscious on the desk. He's holding the back of his head, and he's got his right hand positioned under his eye. I know he's just meant to be unconscious, but that looks... That is a really badly framed shot there. He looks very much like a puppet, which was quite rare for these shows.
Try and stand up.
I don't believe you.
Now, the puppet playing Roger Fleming here is probably best known as being, was it Commodore Goddard? Major Gravener in Captain Scarlet. And he was one of a few puppets from that show which had the capacity to blink. I think we've discussed this before in The Launching, where the Mervyn Brand puppet was often used to play Mr. On Agents because he had that blinking mechanism. Same thing here. This puppet is being used to play Fleming because he can sit in a chair and sort of blink and look weary, unlike most of the other characters. And these two guest characters, the captain and the lieutenant, I don't know if they have names or not. They were both new puppets created for Joe 90.
I know because I am from World Intelligence.
I'll go and put a stop to this, sir.
No! Wait.
Let's see how silly it gets.
They're escaping, sir. Wait.
You'd better tell me where you've
Wait,
hidden
we
that
could
microphone,
make even bigger fools of ourselves.
in case one of us doesn't get through.
Tell you.
It's hidden down river about 8 miles past the Loreno Bridge in the old mission ruins.
At last.
Excellent. So now the race is on to find the microfilm. But of course, we're going to send in a guard to deal with the problem. And who is the guard that we are going to send in? Here he comes. It's Captain Magenta, and he's dead. That was quick.
One of them must have a gun.
That's always a very bad mistake when you have something important to do. For the love of everything, don't send Captain Magenta to do it.
You all right?
Yes, get to the hovercraft. It's in that clump of trees.
And I remember when this was shown on the BBC in 1994, they would cut a lot of the violence out of this show because it was being shown on CBBC. One of the things they cut was Joe shooting Magenta. And I'd like to assume that Joe doesn't kill anybody if he can help it, but, you know, There's always that doubt in the back of your mind. And there's Dr. Fawn as well. There's Dr. Breck as well, both firing away. Okay, now this these shots of the river, this is much more exciting now. Not least because we're actually chasing after the baddies. We're actually doing something now. But the water's got this lovely fog effect rolling over the top of it. It's very nice. This is one of my favourite pieces of incidental music as well from this show, by the way. Yeah, always like this bit. Always used in race against times and countdowns and things like that. And they've now managed to overtake the bad guys.
They're gaining on us.
Do you not think you could maybe lean over and fire a few shots at them with Joe's gun, maybe? You know, just to scare them off a bit? Come to that, why aren't the baddies firing at Joe? They're like 2 feet away from him. They could easily at least try. Ooh, there's a big log blocking the river. How are we going to get past this? Whoa! Well, somehow Joe just managed to jump the hovercraft over the log, but the baddies... Ooh! Yeah, they are not coming back from that.
Fantastic driving.
Not by them, by Joe, yeah. The baddies, unfortunately, have been blown to pieces. And you can see the little miniature figures in that boat as it blew up. They both sort of fell forward. That's rather ghoulish.
I was so full of drugs, I thought it was a young boy. He called himself Joe 90.
That's a nice ending to the story there. It doesn't involve Joe or any of the regular characters at all. It's just our 2 guest characters indirectly giving him credit for not only saving their lives, but also for breaking into and out of the fortress, which no one has ever broken out of before. We, however, have made it through the fortress, and yeah, as I said at the front, another solid episode of Joe 90. I think it is a good example of how dark this show could get. Maybe some of the scenes of Joe sort of chugging upriver in the hovercraft were a bit overlong. That part of it wasn't very engaging. I wish really there'd been more of a chase at the end down the river. Like I said, they weren't shooting at each other. You could have had like several boats coming after him, maybe even a helicopter as well. It just felt like for something so urgent, there wasn't much of a need to get there at the end. However, it's Joe 90. For me, it's always enjoyable. I don't know what the rest of you think. But with 4 episodes down out of 30, we probably won't land on any Joe 90 for a while. Or will we?